17th century, the Ottoman Empire dream of taking control of Europe was defeated in a military siege of Vienna. Flash forward a couple of hundred years, and it looks like that dream is becoming a reality in Germany. German Air Force Colonel Paul Verner Shondorf spoke with San Diego 6 about the growing crisis and the realities that come with accepting 1.5 million Middle Eastern refugees.
This is a very difficult question. They have another cultural background. They don't accept German law. They think they have their own law, the Sharia. Refugees are coming in. They also need housing, and so I think this is a source of a social conflict in the future.
The colonel also explained that Germany's constitution, that was written in part by America, also provides for unlimited asylum.
It's well known that our constitution has the right for asylum without a limited number. And when the first refugees came in, there were big signs, welcome. And our Chancellor Merkel said, you are welcome.
Unfortunately, those welcome signs encouraged millions of displaced refugees to flee the Middle East wars and seek refuge in Germany and other EU nations. But away from the welcome signs, the German police admit there have been a steady increase in crimes like robbery and rape of women who do not dress modestly.
The crime rates are going up. They have no money. They see the fortune and the wealth all around, and they have the illusion that they have only to be here, they find a job, and then they may live like other citizens do. But it doesn't work. They are depending on social finance, and that's not much. And so the robberies are going on, and also the rapes are happening. The crime rate is going up.
So what's the solution? How can the U.S. help the refugee crisis? Colonel Shondorf said it's simple. End the wars in the Middle East.
And Kimberly is here to discuss what many are calling the worst humanitarian crisis going on right now. How does the U.S. just end this war? I mean, the war in the Middle East has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. We've had a presence in the Middle East for more than a decade.
Yes,
it's not as simple as it sounds.
Well, I think what we're seeing here, we're seeing the consequences of what takes place away from the battlefield right now. After about 15 years in the Middle East of this current war, you know, they're fleeing Syria, they're fleeing Iraq, they're fleeing Jordan, Lebanon, and a whole slew of countries because it's nothing but war. It doesn't have a lot to offer for them. So, you know, it's just, you know, it's important for America to kind of, you know, keep this in mind. And unfortunately for the EU, they're closest to the Middle East, so that's logically where these refugees will be going.
Speaking with the Colonel, Germans, a very liberal society, how are the cultural differences playing out, and how do the majority of Germans feel about these refugees coming to Germany?
Well, what we're seeing, we're not seeing here, but overseas, and if you go on to overseas news reports, you're seeing leading the news every night, all of these refugees. You're seeing massive demonstrations by all political parties, all political, you know, religious spectrums. You know, they're very upset that they're getting this large number of refugees that are coming into their country. So it is causing conflict. I'll just give you an example of when they go to hospitals. In Germany, there have been reports that parents will not even allow their children to be treated because the women doctors, the women nurses or technicians, they aren't dressed in full burqas, so they are not allowing them to be treated. And another important point is that only 8% of refugees going into Germany, they've taken 1.5 million expected this year, and then they're expected to take another 3 or 4 million the next 2 years when they bring their families. 92% of these people are not educated, so they can speak a language of some sorts, but they do not have a background, so they really have no skills, and they're going to rely upon the Christian, you know, faith people there to help them out, the government to help them out, and it's really overwhelming. There are communities that have populations of 987, and the government's telling them you will now be taking 1,400 refugees. It's very disruptive, very disruptive.
It is hard as both citizens and just humans to decide what to do, because resources versus compassion.
Exactly. And if you look about what the size of Germany is as a country, it's about the size of New Mexico.
Okay.
So imagine 1.5 million going into New Mexico. How would we deal and contend with that? And as the Colonel said, the best thing that we can do from this country's perspective, and he's saying that Germans are very disappointed in America now.
Is try to end the war as quickly as possible.
Let's end those wars.
All right. Thank you, Kimberly,
Okay,
for
great.
your perspective.
Thank
And
you.
to read more